Stand clear.
100% Wild Podcast.
So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast, powered by DeerCast. This is episode number 289, and it's hosted by two barnacles on the whole of the outdoor industry.
Tim Chelswick
And Matt Drury.
Is that me?
That's you and me, buddy.
Oh, okay.
We're barnacles, the barnacle boys. He's the brittle boy, and we're the barnacle boys.
Okay. Keep the names to yourself.
Well, you guys are naming bucks after me.
No, I
And
didn't.
it's not complimentary.
I didn't. That was Scott. But it wasn't a great
What's
name.
the name of the buck? What's the name of the buck that you named?
Wait a second. Who's that? We have Wade Robinson.
Waiter.
Hey, Wade, before we get into that, I want to tell you something. I got word after you did the Working Class podcast that you mentioned that was your first time ever on a podcast. I want to remind you that you have been on our podcast before that.
I haven't done many podcasts.
Okay. Well, this is your second time on ours, and it sounds like it's your third time on a podcast. I want to just make it clear that we were first. We have invited you on before.
Okay.
We had listeners that listened to both that sent us messages like, man, Wade must really forgot about you guys because he's over there talking like it's his first time on a podcast. Okay. No big deal. So we're just having you on again.
Make a round.
I mean, this time will be remarkable. It'll be memorable.
Well, it will be remarkable because we're going to talk about Wade's 188-inch Iowa Giant that he killed about a week or so ago, maybe 10 days or so ago. And we're going to get into that. We'll probably get into a little bit about the trip to Iowa that Scott and I just had this past 4 or 5 days. And but first, Wade's wondering what the deer was that we named and what the name was, I guess. And it just happened. Scott just named this deer.
Yeah, out of spite for me. He called it Tiny.
So it had nothing to do with Tim.
Yeah.
It kind of does. He named it Tiny Tim.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got like a sticker on it or something that's pretty diminutive. Which...
I came into the office and Scott had like an epiphany. He's like, I got a name for a buck. Tiny Tim. He was very excited about it.
What if he's gonna...
And usually what they say is those bucks that you name like Tiny Tim or Little Joe or whatever, usually they end up in the mega giants. So Tim,
wow.
you got a positive outlook on this one.
Okay.
That is a positive outlook because I've seen the deer. It's going to take a few years.
Maybe I need to start renaming my deer then too. How about you? What is it? One of yours is called Titan.
Titan, yeah.
So he's like next year if he makes it,
he's gonna be real tiny.
He's gonna be a shrinky dink.
We named him Titan because Scott. I've never seen Remember the Titans movie, but he said strong side, right side, or weak side, left side, something like that. Well, this deer, I guess, it reminded him of it. We didn't have a better name anyways, and he's a big ass deer, so I thought, you know what, Titan's pretty good.
Naming deer is always a struggle.
Let's start there. Wade, how do you guys go about naming deer? Because I asked Mark about that this past weekend. And he's like, honestly, I don't do that a lot anymore because we're covering so much ground. There's so many different deer that we see. Yeah. But
yeah, for sure. Like usually, we will name or have already named some from past years, and usually we just kind of roll off of that. Like we'll go through and usually have a watch party in the late summer, like middle of August, late August, and go through all the cards, Perry, myself, Mark, Karsten, Josh, and we'll throw them up all on the big screen. And once we get our list of shooter bucks, if you will, we'll go in and create an album and then just go through and try and pick out characteristics or just come up with names for each of them. We did that last year. We haven't done that this year. And so we just come up with names for the targets just so we have names to talk and refer back to each deer because there are so many different farms and so many different bucks that we're trying to keep track of. It can get a little confusing at times. So we'll just go through, make an album of all of our bucks, and then whatever characteristics they may have, that's how we get their name, unless they got named otherwise. Like the deer that you were actually hunting, whenever you guys were up, we as a buck we called Smash, and it was I think that deer is 7.5, 6.5 or 7.5, old buck, but he's really, really massive, tall G1s, but his tines are all the same length as his G1, so he's kind of smashed and compact. And 2 years ago, Perry actually, whenever he was putting in that green field, he went in there and he smashed his finger and crushed it in like the bone in 3 different spots, lifted a cultipacker off the 4-wheeler. So that deer got his name Smash. He never had a name before, but that's the plot he always hit. He had smash tines. Perry smashed his finger, so that's how he got his name Smash.
We'll get into this whole story in a little bit, but we actually did encounter Smash. Not the way you'd like to, but we did encounter him.
We did encounter Smash.
And Scott found his shed.
Whoa.
Right before we encountered him.
That's weird.
Yeah. Again, it wasn't the way you'd like to see the deer, though. We'll get into that later.
Can we make an addition to his name and call him the Smash G2 buck? It would just
He's making fun of me because I have a lot of deer that are named off of the G2.
Making fun with.
He's a crooked G2. He's a kicker G2.
He's the short tine G2. He's a split G2. We could go on. It's like Forrest and Bubba Gump talking about shrimp.
Different shrimp dishes.
Yeah. So Wade, obviously you've been with Mark, 10, 11 years now?
Yeah.
So you've been there a long time.
2012. Yeah.
And you guys have obviously built a rapport and trust, as far as like, you the way I look at it, you're almost, you're not even, it's not as an employee at this point. You're part of the family, and Mark trusts you and Perry and those guys. You're trusted with the keys to his farm, literally. And, Mark and Terry Forrest is the same way at Terry's place. And it takes a long time. I've seen a lot of camera guys and farm managers come and go through the years, and they're tough to work for, Mark and Terry. There's a lot of high expectations at all times. And if you mess up, you'll hear about it, very quickly, and usually in front of a group. And so, to be able to survive that, obviously there's some sort of trait or characteristics. Mark always says, and Terry too, you're a killer. You have killer instincts. You know what you're doing in the field. You're great behind the camera. And so you've had opportunity over the years to really kill some very nice deer throughout your time with Drury Outdoors. But the deer that I wanted to get into, the one you just killed a week or so ago, why don't you take us through a little bit of the story there? And I mean, long time coming, but your biggest deer ever, 188 inches. I think I got that right, but just an absolute Iowa giant stuff dreams are made of. So kind of give us some history on this deer, age, how long you guys have known him, and take us through the story a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 years ago is kind of where the story all started. The deer was a 4.5-year-old, and he just, giant frame to 8, really good mass, tall G1s, just a prototypical big frame to 8-pointer. And Mark and I talked about him several times, and he kept showing up on camera, and he'd always catch your eye just because how massive he was, and, had a really nice wide frame. And we were just throwing around guesses on score. And come that March, I guess it was, we ended up finding both sides to his sheds that year. And again, we had took guesses on his score, and we way over guessed him. He had pretty short beams, not as tall at times as what we thought, but just, a showstopper on camera. But nonetheless, we found both sheds, found out that I think it was like in the high 40s or something like that, as an 8-pointer, which is a really, really nice 8, just not the 8 that we had thought he looked to be on camera. So the next year we were really excited to see what he would blow into. And he blew, but we got a couple summer velvet pictures of him, and then he disappeared off the farms until I think it was late December. We finally got another picture of him, and Mark and I actually encountered him down in the bottom, just below of where I encountered him the first time this year. So we're like, okay, he made it through gun season. It was at the end of gun season when he showed back up on our farm. We elected to pass him and just see what he would do at 6.5. And I said, so he was one of the deer going in to this summer that we were really excited to see what he would do. He had a couple kickers off his G2s, but nothing crazy. Basically just a giant framed 8. And, it's just a cool looking 8, wide, massive, tall G1s, a couple kickers. So, we kind of threw him in the back of our memory bank. And, but whenever the photos rolled in this summer, we had some really, really, really nice deer. But for some reason that deer stuck out to me, and we knew exactly who it was. And I told Mark, like, we have some higher scoring deer that we have on camera. But I told Mark, I said, that deer is probably one of the most impressive deer I've ever seen trail photos of. Just he was 20, almost 24 inches wide, 23 and 3/4 inches wide. Big drop tine, had some inside tines, just an absolute giant of a deer. And boy, he knew how to take pictures for those Reconyx cameras. He'd give you every angle. And so, like, I didn't really have intentions on shooting him because he was one of our top end deer. Like, he was probably number 3 or 4, 5 in our top 5.
Meaning you thought Mark would go after him.
Yeah, I thought Mark would maybe want to target him, but Mark had other plans, and he stayed around. Like I said, last year he disappeared in September, and we had the winds we needed to get in after him on the second day of season. Actually, it was kind of iffy on the winds, so we had to keep blocked up. But Mark said, go in after him. His number one target daylighted that morning as well and went to bed. And as did this one. He's like, we're going to split up. We're going to go after these 2 bucks. It's like, okay.
For real?
Yeah. It's like such an honor to be able to chase a deer of this caliber, which 2 years prior, I actually shot, which was my biggest deer at the time, 181 inch deer we call grasshopper, on the same field. I was going in to hunt D8. We called him D8 because he's super wide, drop tine, like a dozer. He had multi-purpose name.
Did Mark tell you before or after you killed the deer that this deer was going to be your Christmas bonus?
That's absolutely fine.
Oh yeah, one other thing.
You're done.
Yeah. But no, like I said, day 2 of Iowa bow season, in the morning time, this guy went to bed at I think it was 8:09 a.m. and Mark's went to bed at 7:30 a.m.
Super late.
Super late. And so we had to go in. Like I said, I was pushing the wind a little bit. So Josh Sparks and I crawled in to that hawk blind, locked all the windows up. We got them clean, and it was like a free sauna, if you will, but it paid off. We waited all night. We had some does come out right downwind where we thought he might have went in and bedded.
Wait, what time did you go in?
We got in right at 5.
Okay.
Maybe a touch before 10 to 5.
Okay.
We got a pretty good idea what time these deer start on our food plots. It wasn't, DeerCast, I think it was, I don't even know if it was saying good at the best. It wasn't great. It was either saying good or okay, because it was still warm. Heck, it had to be high 70s, low 80s, but he went to bed so late, so we had to try him. Like I said, Josh and I was locked up in that hawk blind, and we had deer come out downwind, so we passed the sniff test, if you will.
Sure.
And right at last light, probably 15 minutes of spare of light, he popped out. He didn't pop out on the trail where all the does did, but he did come out about 40 yards straight downwind. So our plan worked. The deer just never came close enough for that lighting. A couple small bucks came around the corner, and he walked them off, and I had my hand on the latch to open that window and get him shot, but he spun around and chased that small buck off. He was not having it that night. So, it was just an honor to get to hunt that deer. We didn't know when he was going to walk out of our lives again, because like I said, he left in September last year. So we're like, any day could be his last. But nonetheless, we hunted the next day in Iowa. I filmed Mark, I believe. And then again, we got another picture of him going to bed, but in the bottom field below. And so Mark's like, yeah, try him again. The same exact wind that he killed the fork buck on.
Okay.
It was kind of, again, edgy. We didn't know exactly which way he went to bed, but he was out in the field daylight. I think it was actually a little later that morning. I think it was like 8:30 or something like that. So Josh said after the first time Josh filmed me, he said, no matter what, I'm going to sweat it out with you. I'm going to film you kill this deer. I want to be the one to film you kill this deer since he kind of started the quest with me filming it. Like, okay, sounds good. So again, we locked back in, and same thing. We had 8 does come out right downwind. So we passed the test, and he showed up early that night. It was probably 6:45 or so, because I think I shot him at 6:50. Yeah, he showed up at 6:45 in the radish plot, and walked all the way into 25 yards. And again, we had deer straight downwind of us, but he was at 25 yards, broadside. So I eased the window open, and as soon as I do that, he sticks his face right down in those radishes and turns towards us. And I was talking to Josh, like, panic buttons were getting pushed. We're blowing our wind over deer in the field at the other end, and those deer actually started to clear. He never lifted his head out of the radishes. We kept the window open, and finally, after he fed in the radishes facing us for like a minute, so like I was just waiting for him to get out of there, and finally he turned broadside and gave me a 22-ish yard shot. And like I said, the rest is history. He boogied all the way through the field, and we found him that evening. So it was unbelievable hunt for the largest deer of my life. Like I said, it was cool and a bit rewarding. The first night, getting to see him, seeing our efforts pay off of locking in that blind. Had to be over 100 degrees in there. We were literally just dripping sweat, and then to do it again the fourth night of season was just awesome. So I couldn't be more thankful and more happy that Mark allowed me to chase a deer of that caliber. Like I said, he allowed me to do it 2 years prior, and he would have let me do it last year too, but I killed a different buck that was daylight, went to bed, and nice deer, 150 some inch 10-pointer, really nice deer. But like I said, I just couldn't be happier or more honored to chase a deer of that caliber, because like I said, whenever we got the velvet pictures, that deer was not definitely on my radar to get to hunt as big as he was. I figured Mark would want to chase that deer as big as he was. So
you only have so many tags. I mean, and that's, I think Mark, he's to the point where, and that's where, the trust and, all the work that you guys put in, you and Perry and the crew up there, he's very gracious and, kind of sharing, I guess, the fruits of your labors. I mean, it's a deserved thing. You guys, it was well deserved and earned. And so it's gracious of Mark, but it's also a thing where, hey, you guys are putting in the sweat equity with him, side by side. And it makes you more dialed in when you have the same opportunities. You know what I mean? And that's really cool. And I think you mentioned going to bed. You get these deer and their pictures. That's something that I noticed. When we were up there this past weekend, you guys are super dialed into your cell cams, and when you guys have one going to bed within what would you say, like from anywhere from like 5:30 a.m. till 8:30, 6 a.m. to 8, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yep.
You're sending somebody in, somebody from the crew is going to that spot to try to see if he'll come back out.
Yep, exactly. Like we pay attention to our trail cameras every morning. We get a report at 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. So we kind of know who's where. We usually push it to 9 a.m. because everything is usually in bed. We'll change that report time a little bit later in the season when they're up on their feet a little longer. But this time of year, everything's pretty well, down and in bed by 9 a.m. So we get a report and we come up with a game plan that afternoon. But it's a day-to-day basis of where everybody's going, and we're usually running 2 crews for sure, if not 3 or 4. So the deer around our farms and stuff, they're in trouble if they show themselves on camera at all, because we got enough crews that we can send out and take advantage of that, them going to bed late.
Sure. Wait, I'm curious, and I guess we're kind of running out of time just in terms of, because the cold weather is here and it's hitting. But when you go and you have a sit in a box blind that is so hot like that, what do you do afterwards to prepare, like scent management wise, for your next time? Are you washing your clothes? Are you crushing? Like what is that process?
Absolutely. Like as soon as I get home, I get out of my camo because it's literally dripping wet.
Mhm.
So throw it in the wash. Usually use the nose jammer soap, and then straight out of the wash in the dryer, and then in the scent crusher bag that evening. And then again, I'll run another cycle through my scent crusher bag before the next hunt as well.
Gotcha.
So washer, dryer, scent crusher bag, and then let it sit in the bag and then run it through another cycle right before I go hunt the next time.
So what's next for you for the rest of the season? I mean, obviously you're filming, but I guess as an Iowa resident, you have another archery tag, and then you'll have a firearm permit late season. Is that right?
No, and that would be just the landowner tag. Would be the second bow tag. So as a resident non-landowner, you get a bow tag and a gun tag. So
gotcha.
I'll probably savor that last Iowa tag and usually run it at late muzz. And Mark was giving me a hard time telling me, all right, time to get your early muzz tag, which starts here in just a few days, because I was giving him a hard time. Opening day, I killed a buck in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get to hunt but hour and a half, 2 hours. And then on the opening night of Iowa, he wanted me to go in after this other buck, really big deer. He actually encountered him the other night. He had double G1s, probably mid 170s type deer. And I was like, Mark, I hate to be like that, but like, I really don't want to tag out on day 2 or on day 1 of Iowa. I'd rather film you, which I'm glad I did, because we encountered his number 1 target, just an absolute mega giant. I was able to film that. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I waited till day 4 and now I'm tagged out again.
Wow.
But no,
right. Oh, poor Wade.
but in all honesty, it doesn't matter that much whether you have a bow in your hands or whether I have a camera in my hand. Uh-huh. It's all the same, and I get the same rush. I've filmed a lot of kills this year already. The Catch a Dream hunt, that was awesome one to film. Again, I filmed that this past weekend. And, so I've got to film some hunts, and, so it doesn't matter to me whether it's I shoot it with a camera or shoot it with a bow. Mm-hmm. But it is nice to have that tag in your pocket and that part to look forward to. But like I said, it doesn't matter to me either way. But Texas is coming up. We're leaving for Texas here in just a few days. So we're excited to get back down there. It's our home away from home.
More tags.
And it's going to be a little different. We're actually at a new ranch. So I went and set that up this summer. So I'm excited to see how all that lays out. It's never perfect the first time, but we should have some pretty good success. We're getting some pictures rolling in now. So
sweet. Excited
to go down there here in a few days.
So, as we look back at the success you guys have as a crew up there, and no matter whether it's Missouri, Iowa, or Texas, wherever Mark's crew is, there's usually a blood trail to follow. And so what do you guys attribute most of your success to? I mean, cameras are a huge part of it, but are there things that you've picked up from Mark over the years, or you guys do a lot of stuff as a group collectively, but obviously there's still the guy at the top. What are the things that you have picked up on the most that have really attributed to your success as a team? Because I mean, we got 60 guys on our team, guys and gals, and we can always account for Mark's crew, mm-hmm. Being like up there with our, helping with the kill count the most, and mature bucks,
And we're asking for the benefit of our listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the main thing is, like Mark has always said in the past, like, we kill the deer whenever we're in preparation, like in the summer times, all those long hours that Perry and myself are out there watering those green fields to make sure there's a food plot there. The long hours of putting in the food plots, the hours that Mark goes through all the trail camera parts. That's when we kill the deer. And, whenever we go in, we get the daylight picture of him going to bed. that's whenever we go shoot the deer. So we kill the deer in the early season, just preparing, making sure everything is dialed and perfect for when it comes time to go in and shoot the deer. So that's the main thing, is just all the hard work and efforts behind the scenes that, they're getting out there more and more as the past years kind of went by of the planting, Mark going through the literally millions of pictures. He goes through millions of pictures, spends every morning, he's looking through the cell cameras, and it takes him an hour and a half every morning and every evening, because we get a 9 p.m. and a 9 a.m. So he goes through an hour and a half of his day in the morning and an hour and a half of his day in the evening, looking through cell camera cards. So that's 3 hours a day scrolling through pictures, trying to make the right move for that next hunt. So it's just, like I said, countless hours of hard work and that don't really get the light of day. They're getting it more and more as we've kind of changed of how we are producing things to let the viewer know, because a lot of those viewers out there, we get so much hate and trash mail about your high fence hunting.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and if I had your money, we could kill those type of deer. Just all that dumb stuff that they just don't see the hours and effort and sweat that goes into to our success, which makes it so rewarding is just knowing. And I just laugh at those comments, because if they were with myself, Perry, Forrest, Mark, Terry, Matt, Scott, throughout the summertime, all the efforts and hard works that we're putting in, they would understand, but they're just not there. So
how big was the property that you killed your deer on this year? How many acres?
This farm is actually 257 acres.
257. I think that's my point is a lot of people think that Mark has one giant tract up there, but he's sold those tracts through time, and he's actually got his theory now is, and has been for a few years here, satellite farms. So it's an 80 here, it's a 120, it's a 240, it's still, hey, that's still great. A lot of acreage. Yeah. So it's all relative to what you're used to, but these properties are, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes over there, another 20 minutes there. They're satellite farms. So his whole thought process is, well, if EHD hits, I might.
It's very so it's not going to wipe out your whole herd.
Yeah, correct. So being spotty, you might still have, it might wipe out this herd, but you might have that herd to hunt or whatever. So they take the land management side and food plot architecture to like the next level. That's the thing that, from afar, I've always picked up on and noticed, but being up there the last few days, Scott and I, on the way home, we were talking about it. It's like, just, for instance, that walking trail that you guys planted of biologic radishes, that's 20 yards in front of the blind. It's a walking trail right in front of us. And then it's got beans on both sides of the walking trail. It's that type of thought process, that you guys go through, that I think you're manipulating deer movement, but that's not easy to do. You know what I mean? That takes a lot of thought to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. And years of watching a particular food plot or field, to see where the access points are. But yeah, basically what we're doing is taking for instance, the field that you're talking about, a 3-acre field, and narrowing all the deer down within 20 yards. Mm-hmm. And we sat there the other night, and I would say 85-90% of the deer got within bow range.
Yeah.
20. But, it's just, you got a food plot architecture. You could plant as much food in the world, but getting them within bow range is a whole nother story.
Right. Not only that, but
back to your point of the small parcels, like the deer that I shot on opening evening in Missouri, that was a 40-acre tract. And it's the same 40-acre tract that I shot my opening day buck on last year. So you don't need a giant piece of dirt. You gotta make it the best piece of dirt you possibly can by, whether it be adding cover, adding food, just make it the best piece you can, and you'll have a really nice spot to hunt.
And like I said, it's all relative. 40 acres might seem like a lot, but when you're looking at deer movement and how they travel, it is not a lot. 200 acres, 300 acres. I mean, they'll travel miles. You know what I mean? So you guys are creating a habitat there that's convincing them to be there or linger there or stick around a little bit longer, but they can easily get shot by the neighbors. And that's, you know what I mean? Like, so that's what everybody's dealing with, you know? So I think I just want to make sure and bring that point across, because I don't think we talk about it enough. I mean, Dad still has his one big property there in North Missouri. So it's a little bit different, but in general, you know, you guys are on little, you know, smaller farms, and they're all kind of broken up throughout the different counties. Like you're in 2 different zones there in Iowa, you know, a few different properties in 2 different zones. So
we're about 45 miles from north to south. So we got them strung out for sure. It definitely makes it harder for Perry and I, getting in those food plots whenever they need to go in, because as you know, you see a rain coming and you push to get as many, and if not all of them, in as possible. And it's a lot of road time on the tractor, but like I say, come season, summertime for that matter, you know, EHD hits and it knocks out this farm or knocks out that farm, you still have other farms to hunt. So it usually doesn't wipe out your whole herd and wipe out everything that we got and just put us out of commission for the fall.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, speaking of out of commission, I've been looking at my rain gauges, hoping for something to come and hit my plot, because my plots are pretty much dirt.
Same
right now. It's been so dry. I don't know if it's been the same up by you guys.
Oh, it's worse up there. Actually,
it's pitiful.
It's been really bad. Our best plots are definitely the ones we watered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy though, because I shot a deer Saturday morning that came into the plot that we built this summer, and it's mostly dirt, a little bit of ryegrass growing in there, but they still habituated. So it's something different. And I think actually, because it's kind of, there's white oaks in there. I think it's easier for them to get at the acorns because they're just falling on dirt.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of attractive value,
like Easter egg hunting on a baseball diamond.
It's like, I see one there. Easy, exactly. but man, it's tough. Like,
killed your old nanny, huh?
Well, and that's the thing. It was a button buck.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Wah, wah. Yeah.
What happened there, Tim?
Well, so the stand is so high up and it's it's on the side of a valley. So like I'm kind of looking down at the deer, and he really didn't have any buttons to speak of, even like when I got up on him.
It was a cold button buck.
Yeah. Well, I felt bad, but not super bad, because there are just way too many deer on this property in general that just need to be taken out. So I was like, not great, but it is what it is.
Shit happens. Let me tell you, I've killed a few button bucks in the late season at Dad's place.
Perry's nickname is Perry Button.
His name's Perry Batten, and they call him Perry Button.
Whoops.
We won't go into that, but in Mark's phone, his little icon, his little profile icon is a little button buck. So ours will go with that, but that's you see Perry out and about. Perry Button.
Poor Perry. It was weird. Movement happened so late on Saturday morning. It was like 9:30. I had seen 0 deer. It was, I think the first morning we had the really big cold front, like the real deep cold that came through. And it wasn't until 9:30 that deer started like piling into the plot. And it was like, I need to do
just
doe
took them a little
patrol.
bit longer to get rolling, maybe.
I guess. I'm not quite sure where they were coming from. But they all descended on that plot, and they were like looking at Frank, who's laying down on his side with a lighted knock right there next to him, and a little bit weirded out. But it was good to see deer. It's good to put some more meat in the freezer. So
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did not have the same experience. We went to Iowa there, big cold front, rising moon, like DeerCast has given us goods and the greats, like best time, maybe the best time all October to go, based on how things lined up. And perfect conditions. So we go and get it. We left Wednesday morning, got up there. I took the kids to school. Then we went up there and we hunted Wednesday afternoon. I sat with Wade, I sat with Mark and Scott that first afternoon, and on a plot that they had wired, kind of hot wired, and Perry had watered quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had pulled the hot wire maybe a week or so earlier.
Yeah, a couple before.
And man, the deer were piling in. Like, I bet we saw 25 to 30 deer. Just no mature bucks.
I'm curious, Wade, how quick, when you pull that hot wire down, how quick will the deer start hitting that field?
Well, I mean, they'll hit it immediately because Perry and I's hot wire skills haven't been up to par this year. For some reason, a few of the deer always have us figured out, and we're getting pictures inside the hot wire fence where there shouldn't be pictures getting taken. So, you know, I don't know. A few of those old nannies, they'll figure it out and jump the fence and be in there. But, I mean, it's basically the same night that you take it down, the field will fill up because they know, you know, the deer on our farms, they know what a deer radish is from past years.
Yeah.
And
like opening the door at Walmart on Black Friday.
Deer getting trampled to death.
at the hot wire fence waiting to get in.
So that was the first night, Wednesday. After a couple really nice bucks that they had pictures, you know, every day going to this field. And, go the next night and see probably 20, 30. That night, I think I was with you, Wade, right? And we saw a ton of deer and saw a couple nice 3.5-year-old bucks and all right in front of us, all over the place. Coyote cleared the other end of the field, so we don't really know if that slowed us down or not, but didn't see any matures that night. So that evening, we're back at camp, and Mark, after everybody goes home, it's just Scott and Mark and myself, and Mark's like, you know what? Tomorrow morning is going to be unbelievable. So that would have been Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He's like, man, you really should go. And you know, I had a guy ask me this question, I think on the Drury Outdoors website last week. He's like, hey, I know you guys don't hunt mornings typically in October, early October, but with the conditions, what do you think? I said, hey, absolutely. Like, they're so good, it would not hurt to be out.
Cast.
Yeah. And so, so anyways, we go to a spot. Mark goes through like his brain of this stand, that stand, this stand. Cause I guess maybe, you know, you guys don't have a ton of spots set up for.
I mean, we're definitely based majority, whatever,
Majoritively
on on food plots. So, you know, like, you just going into these food plots in the morning and just running where are the deer at in the early morning. They're on the food plot, so we're running them out before you even get there to hunt them, unless you have a cold frosty morning when they bed down right at first light, give you that access in, and then, you know, let the frost burn off, the deer get up on their feet a little bit more before they go on the bed. So that's the only time usually we'll go hunt a food plot in the morning, early season or late season is on a cold frosty morning when all the deer bedded down at that first light hour.
Yeah. So this spot, it's a lease that they have, and the access to it was awesome, very easy to get to, and it was a tree stand. It was a double set. And the way that the terrain is, it all funnels from some big bean fields. It all funnels down into a little finger of timber where it kind of intersects, and there's paths that go right in front of you. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's a deadly spot. Like, they're within bow range once they go through this little funnel. Okay. And so we had sat there, and, you know, I don't know, it was probably like, I think around 7 something. I don't remember what exact time, but all of a sudden we start seeing does pop out from both sides of this kind of these fingers of timber and brush, and they filter out into the field, and they start filtering down past us. Well, they, for whatever reason, decided to hang out right below us. And there was at this time, there were 7 does, I think, hanging right under us. And
was it quiet?
Oh, dead calm. No wind, dead calm. Of course. And so we're sitting there, and, you know, I had been like, as soon as I saw the does, I stood up, and I just wanted to be standing ready, just in case a buck popped out. I didn't have to get up and make the movements and whatever. But I didn't grab my bow because, you know, that sucks to hold your bow for that long if you have a bunch of deer underneath you. So I'm like, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Yeah. And little did I know that they were going to just hang out underneath us. And I'm not lying to you when I say right under us. They were like the one. I, of course, dropped a glove.
Oh no!
In the morning, like as we're getting ready, and I couldn't find the damn thing. And one doe had gone to our nose jammer trail and then walked to the base of the tree, and then she starts sniffing around, and she's like basically like licking my glove. And Scott's filming literally between his feet, right below us. She's below us, and then there's another one with her.
That's nerve-wracking.
So, anyways, I'm looking up at the field where they kind of all popped out in this like grassy area where, Mark said that we could see something pop out. And Scott's like, I saw another deer up there. I saw something up there, a buck maybe. And then we kind of saw a tail or something. And he's filming, I think, the does right underneath us. And I see a main beam coming out of this grass. And I was like, big buck. And
like John Candy in the Great Outdoors.
It was big bear. Yeah, it was a large main beam. And I didn't even, that's with my naked eye, like at 70, 80 yards, I'm like, big buck. So I didn't bother putting binoculars up. I knew he was a shooter, and Scott gets on him, gets him coming out. And the way the terrain and everything filters out, there's a couple trees, we're kind of back off the field edge a little bit.
Sure.
I don't know, Wade, what would you say? I don't know. Have you been to that spot? I assume you have. Probably 40 yards off, 40.
Yeah, I would say 50 yards.
Off of the edge of the field.
Okay.
And then they funnel into the grass and kind of go past you. So at this point, he's walking towards us like at a pretty good pace. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to grab my bow now while he's behind the tree and he can't see me. And when I say I'm grabbing my bow, it's not like I'm doing jumping jacks in the stand. I mean, these deer are all around us. So I'm moving very slowly with my right hand over my left shoulder, kind of turning, back because that's the side of the tree my bow was hanging on.
Okay.
Grab the bow, and I'm slowly moving it to get in front of me. And little did I know, the one doe that was sniffing my glove had moved on. I thought she was it. I thought they were all to our right. There had been one more, and it's looking up at us. And I only know this because Scott's got 50 angles of it. This doe,
of course he does.
She looks up right. I mean, her face is in the frame looking at us. I got a screenshot of it. It's embarrassing, but I'm moving the bow. She bounds out. No, nothing blows. I mean, the pressure was, what was it? It was like 30.45 or
4 or 5. Yeah.
Sky high, our thermals are rising. So they're not catching us.
Sure.
But they caught the movement. So she doesn't wind us or anything like that, but spooked her enough where like the rest of the deer, lunged out a little bit. So he stops his forward progress. And he's looking around. The deer, the does keep feeding. Like they decided, okay, we're gonna live with it, and they kind of hung around. He keeps feeding up where he's at, or he's looking a little bit, and then he puts his head down. And he comes another 10 yards. So at that point, he's at 46 yards. At one point through there, I actually put my binoculars up, and his bases, it basically looked like Wade's deer, but
it did.
He had a big dagger, like unicorn dagger, off his base instead of Wade's drop tine. It was kind of off of his base, but
it had all those little stickers and trash off his bases. Like, he was an awesome deer, probably about the same width too. I bet he's 22 to 24 inches wide as well.
Yeah.
Is this a deer that you had seen, that you guys had on camera and knew of?
Yeah,
Wade?
we got a few trail camera pictures during the summer on analogics, but we hadn't been back in there to pull the cards recently.
Okay.
So we had velvet pictures, a couple velvet pictures, and it was just a beam or a tine, but we knew it was that same deer. We never got great pictures, but we did have pictures of it.
Gotcha.
So at this point, I'm like, okay, he's at 46, and I felt he calmed down. He's kind of like eating in the, the beans or the grass or whatever it was up there. And I'm thinking he's going to come. He's going to keep coming. He then just kind of turns his body language. He turns a little bit. And so he came down the right edge, down this field edge. And then he just turned and he went back up the left edge. And the closest he was 46 quartering away. And I'm not, I wasn't, it was super calm. They were already goosey. So I didn't even cross my mind to take a shot, because I thought Mark would kill me if I screwed this up. So we didn't take the shot. The footage was awesome. We went back in that night just because we felt like that was, late in the morning. We thought, hey, he's probably bedded right here in this finger or somewhere. So low percentage chance he'd come back down there, but you never know. So we went back in, we sat there for another hour or so. Woods quieted down and we snuck out, go back in that afternoon. No luck. Saw a bunch of deer, a bunch of does, never did see him. Coyote came out and cleared the field. And so that was that, but it was intense to see a deer. If I've seen a bigger deer that close, I don't remember. Maybe Dad was after a giant buck called Mr. Christmas long time ago. And I saw him maybe at 50 yards, one rut morning, walking away, but nothing that was as good of an opportunity as this, where I thought he was going to come in front of us. Yeah. So definitely like excited, jacked up, like, holy crap, this is Iowa. Right. Mm-hmm. So that was Friday morning and Friday afternoon. Saturday Mark decided to have us go into this place that they, were getting great pictures of, 2 or 3 deer. Wade mentioned a deer they call Smash. They had another big buck in there. So we went in super early. The pressure was through the roof again, probably 30.4 or 5 roughly.
Didn't we get in like at the 3 o'clock, like 3:50 or right before 4? Before 4. I recall.
Yeah, we did. We got in super early and we saw deer immediately. Like it wasn't maybe 10, 15 minutes we were in and they started filtering, some does started filtering out. So Wade's like, man, this is going to be, we're going to see him, we're going to see something tonight. They're moving this early. So this is the property, he said, where it's this 3-acre field and they got beans and they got this walking trail of biologic radishes. Okay, yeah. Did you water that? Because that looked awesome, I thought.
No, we didn't. That bottom just always grows great crop. Like what little rain it does get, it just sits in there. So it does look really good.
And for what it's worth, this is also a lease. This is a different lease that they had that we were on. So we're in the hawk blind. We're sealed up and all that good stuff. But we had a decent wind check on DeerCast was showing it kind of blowing down. We had a creek. The access was ridiculous. Wade kind of snuck us up down through a creek bottom and up right into the blind. So I don't think anything would have seen us get in. I mean, it was deluxe access. So wind's kind of blowing behind us, like down the creek edge. Mm-hmm. We were pushing it a little bit, but not bad. So a bunch of deer started coming out and we had a few young bucks, like beautiful. This is his G1s were probably 8.
Yeah, it's 8-9 inches for sure.
Yeah, like really nice looking young buck. Cool. And so they were out for a long time. We had a couple, that buck and another one kind of just licking each other's coats like for the longest time. That was interesting to see. Like just
uncomfortable sounding.
Yes.
Watch this.
So
a lot of licking.
Yeah, a lot of licking. So finally, I don't know, what time was it, Wade? It was still relatively early.
Yeah, whenever that buck popped out, I would say it had to be 6:30 maybe.
6:30? Yeah. So
6:30. It was early. 6:30, I would say.
Deer pops out. It's not one of the 2 that we were in there after, but it's one that they know really well. I guess you guys knew that he could show up potentially.
Yeah, we haven't had pictures of him since Velvet. So, it's crazy what these cold fronts will bring out.
And it's a deer that they had an encounter with the year before with JP John Paul Morse was in, and he had an encounter with it, but it was busted up, I guess, or maybe young.
Yeah, he busted a G2 off, and it was actually the deer they were going in after, but like I said, he had busted a G2 off, and JP elected to pass him, but I had a great encounter with him nonetheless.
So this deer, Wade, as soon as the deer comes out, he goes, that's a mature buck, I think 6-year-old buck. And that's definitely a mature where that's your target. So get in the mode of, all right, we're going to, it's go time. So the plan all along was when the deer came, hopefully in front of us on this walking trail, the radishes, Wade was going to put the window up while he's filming, and I'm going to draw before he puts the window up, and then swing up around and shoot. And so, the deer's out in the beans for a while and he's probably feeding for a good 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes out in the beans, and he kind of works his way over to the radishes. And then his demeanor, his body changes kind of direction, and it's heading down the walking trail. And we have a ton of deer right below us, in front of us, those young bucks that I had mentioned, they're in front of us by this point. And so,
and the wind is marginal.
It had really died down to nothing at that point, hadn't it?
It was pretty light at that point for sure.
So,
but there were deer in the downwind direction, not straight downwind, but in the downwind direction. So, that was our whole point, and me opening up the window, just to prevent that extra 5 seconds that it takes to clip the window, get back on the string, get drawn back and settle in. It's 10 times easier if the opportunity allows to have the cameraman, filming with one hand, grab the window with the other, have Matt at full draw, where all he's got to do is literally lift his bow up in the window and let it fly. And so that's, Mark and I have done that several times. If I recall, I feel like we did that actually on Danger, whenever Mark killed Danger. Did that.
Well, Wade did his job. Wade lived up to his part of the bargain. And not to mention, I will say, the windows started fogging. They hadn't fogged all night, and right then and there, they started fogging. So Wade's finding this deer within only a few inches of unfogged window, and he's on the vertical window at this point. So I mean, it wasn't an easy gig on his end, and you can't tell he's doing multiple things. Footage is deluxe. So the deer's coming at 20. I got my HHA set at 20, but then he starts kind of veering out into the beans, and I don't know. I don't even know what happened because I was at this point, I'm looking down and drawing and getting ready to swing up. So Wade opens the window, and I don't know what. I mean, it's a chip shot. It was 25 yards. It just held high and a little high, not even much at that distance. And I, get on him and I shoot. He's slightly quartering to me, slightly, not much. And I hit him forward in front of the shoulder. Now, it definitely not what I was intending to do.
Sure.
But when we looked at it, the hope was instantly I knew I screwed up, not where I was aiming, but I had hoped that the arrow got in there and maybe got into the vitals. Yeah. Cause I was shooting a 2.3 Rage chisel, and it goes in and it hits the offside shoulder and kind of bounces out, but it sticks in him and he's running off and he runs down the end of the field. And, he at the end of the field, before he jumps the fence, he kind of got a little woozy, and then he had that burst of energy that you see them have right before they spiral and die. Yeah. But he didn't. He jumped the fence, and then he kind of jaunted up the hill a little bit, and then out of our sight, with the foliage and stuff. And at that point, I didn't know what to expect. I was hopeful that I got in and got deep something, onside, long offside.
Did you see blood at the shot?
I didn't. Wade thought he did. You could tell your side of it from here.
Yeah. So, obviously I felt good about a lot of the things the deer was doing, his actions. He had his tail tucked. He was licking his lips a lot whenever he got over towards the fence, which usually means that it got in there at the lungs. When they start licking the lips or licking the blood and stuff that's coming out. Kept lowering his head, and then that little burst of energy. I was like, okay, we might be in the chips here. But anyways, the field is obviously cleared at that point. We give him a little bit of time to get settled in. The deer get settled off the field, and access is perfect. And Matt and I both back out, and we go back to the house and watch it with Mark and Perry and Josh and Carson, everybody back at the house, and try and come up with the best decision. We talked to Bobby Culberson, we talked to Tracker John, just trying to get the best opinion from everybody of what steps to take next.
We looked at DeerCast track in the blind, and I thought, or maybe in the truck, I thought there was a hit similar that Mark had, but his deer died within minutes, it said, but he was a little further. I don't know. He might've been a little closer to the shoulder even. So, we were trying to make a game plan, figure out what to do. We decided it was probably 3 hours. Wouldn't you say? We went back. went back in. Oh, I know what changed our mind when we were looking at the hit on the big TV. Mark's got a giant, TV to look at this stuff. We saw every time he kind of bounded when he first got hit, there was blood spraying out each time. And so, that I remember Mark was like, oh, whoa, that's a game changer. And we thought felt pretty good about it. So we did at about 3 hours, we went back in, we start tracking and finding blood. It was bright red. It looked like it was, to me, it looked like it was lung blood. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah. Something arterial for sure. That first stuff in the beans, and there was even a little bit of air in it too. So it's like, okay, this is a little better than what we had originally thought. So, we track in 150 yards. Yeah, I think hit to where the blood started slowing down. The deer started walking at that point, and the blood started getting harder and harder to find. Well, we elected to back out because we hadn't quite crested the top of the hill, and we could see all the way to the top of the hill and knew he wasn't on the side hill. So we felt like we were in a good position, that we hadn't bumped the deer, and we were still able to back out and give him, a bit more time.
It was weird. Once my arrow broke off, we found that at probably 150 or so yards, and it had broke off. And so he still had a couple inches of the arrow, and then the 2-3 broadhead was still in him. Yeah. And, but once that broke off, like the blood got down to nothing. We basically ran out of blood. We felt like we ran out of blood that night. So we go out first thing the next morning at daybreak, go back in, and Perry and Wade actually found maybe another 20 yards worth of blood. Yeah. And he kind of opened up again. It looked like he started back up.
Yep. But
then nothing.
Yeah. We got hung up again. So we backed out again, and we waited till later on that evening to go back in.
And we had called Tracker John, and he had made the trek over from Illinois, and because we ran out of blood. We feel like we we also gridded. We also gridded.
Oh, we gridded that one side of the farm too. So, we put 6-ish hours worth of tracking, 6 to 8 hours worth of tracking on this deer, and just ran out of blood basically. So we needed something a little bit better than our eyes and noses. So we called Tracker John up, and he brought over what's that dog's name? Jenna.
Yeah. So these it's amazing to watch him and these dogs work, and they're just really good at what they do. And she tracked for another how many yards do you think she went? Another 70 to 100 before she found a tiny speck.
Maybe 100 probably. It was probably a touch further than that, but it was impressive.
Yeah. And unfortunately the deer had gone down a big, a big gully or whatever, and back up, and it was a steep side, and where she found that little drop of blood. And then from there she kept tracking, and she found a bed, and this is after an hour and a half of tracking. She found a bed, and there wasn't much in that bed. It didn't look good. And at that point, Tracker John and Mark both are like, uh-oh, like this is not a good sign. And we tracked a little bit more and went into the field, and at that point made it out of the timber into the field. We're like, crap, that's really not a good sign, so
that cover where it was bedded to get out in the open is usually never a good sign if fatally hit in the now.
So the consensus was the deer is not dead. And that Mark said it before Tracker John came over. He's like, one thing this will tell us for sure, if the deer is dead, that dog will find it. If the deer is not dead, we will know from that point. Now, that doesn't mean that infection might set in or coyotes might, who knows? They're still looking. Mark went back out again yesterday. We finished at like 9 p.m. This was Sunday night. I had to be home to take the kids to school in the morning because Miranda was working. So Scott and I jumped in the truck at 9 last night, and we drove, or 2 nights ago, and we drove all the way back to St. Louis, 5.5 hours. And then Mark went back out that next morning and looked again at an area that they thought, well, there was a pond or something, like maybe that the deer went down this way. But he didn't find anything, not seeing any buzzards yet. So for the time being,
Bummer.
I'm in limbo waiting to hear from Mark on, if hopefully the deer shows back up, and I can finish the story. And it's a very shitty feeling. I can tell you that.
I feel bad for you.
I feel bad for the deer. I feel bad for Mark and Wade and Perry and these guys that have done, all the work. It's a big letdown. And I've waited my whole life to go up there, to hunt.
Yeah.
And so it was no excuses. It was on me. We looked at the footage and I didn't jerk. I didn't I just rushed.
Sure. Well, but no one that's a bow hunter or a deer hunter in general can cast stones because it happens. Like it's an unfortunate reality. Yeah. Doesn't mean they won't, but anyone who understands really the nature of what we do, it happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you feel any better about it.
No. So
not if, when.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a big letdown on the trip that was so exciting. And it was hell, I started shooting 2 months earlier than I ever shoot, in the summer. Like I felt like I'm shooting good. I am shooting good, but I just rushed it, I guess. And if you see the shot, I don't know if we'll end up showing it or I don't know what the hell we'll do with it. These guys were like, well, we need to put it in DeerCast track to make sure people see, see
hit a deer there. Yeah.
It's one more hit.
So if you want to see Matt's Iowa adventure, go into DeerCast track.
Yeah. It'll last all of like 20 seconds.
Not lethal.
So it sucked, man. And I felt really, really bad, but I don't know.
We're going to keep all eyes on. There's a big farmer that lives right there on the hill. The place is very easy to listen for coyotes, spot buzzards. So we'll find him if he dies. If not, he'll show back up on cameras. We got that place littered with cameras. So, the story's not over yet. We will continue to put effort in on this deer and try and find him.
Yep, absolutely. And I feel good about the effort that we have put in so far. I mean, we have exhausted all efforts.
You do your best.
Yeah, so we'll see. I hope to have at least another opportunity at that deer to close the story or closure and these guys, find out what happened to him. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. But Stay tuned. For now is my Iowa saga. Lasted 4 days and a very shitty ending. All on me. No excuses.
Well, and then it's like just trying to coordinate your family schedule to be able to potentially go back. That's another level of difficulty.
Oh, believe me. Miranda was like, it's just unfortunate for all involved. I'm like,
I can't argue with that.
Because I was texting her like how bad I felt about the deer, how bad I felt for these guys. I let these guys down and all this shit. And she's like, she just said, unfortunate for all involved. I'm thinking that means for her too.
So I'll have to play single parent again at some point.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So that's how Iowa went. It was an unbelievable trip though. And Scott and I talked along, on the way home about the things that we learned on how these guys, we monitor cell cameras, a ton of cell cameras too, but just to kind of see the intel they get and what they do with it. And then what they did with some of the properties and the food plots that we got to see. And Mark had an awesome encounter with 2 giants one night. Scott was filming him. And so to see the kind of food plot architecture they had on that plot, it was just interesting. It was neat to see. So there was a lot of learning, teachable moments out of it.
Sweet. Yeah. So some good came out of it.
I don't know. We'll see.
We get more teachable moments with this week's question of the day.
All righty. The question of the day is proudly brought to you by Sportsman's Channel, your home for Winchester and Drury's natural born and everything red, wild, and blue. By the way, I just proofed the first episode of the new season of Natural Born, and Wade and Perry were in it.
Whoa.
And Wade, you killed that early season muzzleloader buck in it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the one you were talking about, right? The 10?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
The 10.
It's a great episode. So
sweet.
The old man.
Yeah, the old man. All right. So, Mark.
Yes, my name is Mark. I'm from Alabama. I'm also a paraplegic in a wheelchair. And my question is, what is the best way to bow hunt in a wheelchair? I've tried it, and it seems like I can't pull my bow back like I used to before I had my accident. And I was just wondering if I have to Put different modules on it and go down on the weight of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me a message back to see what I need to do.
I thought Mark was going to
Thank
give us
you.
his phone number for a second there.
All right. So that's we actually hunted with a gentleman last year, Scott and I, who was wheelchair bound as well. And it was amazing to see this guy. He was a young guy though. He, and had a bad car accident, and he was determined to get back out and live his life and experience all the things he always enjoyed. So he was lifting weights and killed one of my deer. And we tried. Shockingly, couldn't get a buck in front of him.
Weird.
So, but it was interesting to see kind of the approach. I thought the hardest part was just kind of getting him out and in position of where we needed to go.
Sure.
And he had one of those special track chairs, but we didn't elect to use it. So what we did was we used our golf, basically the jacked up golf carts, the tracker. We brought them in there, and we had a ground blind that we positioned and brushed in, and basically kind of just put the ground blind over the top. Once we got him into position on his wheelchair, we put the ground blind in over the top, and he ended up killing a button buck, actually, if I remember right. We thought it was a fawn, but anyways, I think the hard part in this gentleman's case was, like I said, this other guy, he was lifting weights, and he was pulling his bow back very easily. Like he, knew he was good at what he was doing. So I would think anymore, if he's having trouble pulling his bow back, the first thing I would say is maybe try a crossbow.
100%.
I mean, it would be a game changer for him. Maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe he doesn't want to go that route. If not, they make plenty of good bows. I know Matthews has got a great bow that you could put the mods down on. You could shoot. Hell, Terry's pulling like 47 pounds right now because of shoulder problems. So, some of the females out there pulling 40, 45. You can pull not a ton of poundage and still get the job done. You got to probably watch out for your broadhead a little bit and make sure you're shooting the appropriate broadhead to get enough kinetic energy to do what you need to do. Wade, what would you suggest?
That for sure. I mean, obviously step number one, if you're having trouble pulling your bow back, is go down and wait. And the next step, like Matt had said, is just make sure you're not shooting too big of a broadhead with that lighter poundage, and limit yourself to, 30 and in, if you will, if you're down in that 45, 50 pound range, make sure those deer are close enough to make a lethal shot.
Yep. 100%.
How about you, Timmy?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that my mind went to, because my dad was in a wheelchair for the last 2 or 3 years of his life. And it was always about access. Like, where can I drive the truck up and pretty much like you were talking about, Matt, just put the blind over him and get hunting. And he was gun hunting. We didn't have a crossbow at the time, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with using a crossbow. The other thing I would think about is just making sure, like, if you're in a wheel, like, so you can get those tracks, some of state like DNRs, and I know MDC has programs where you can, folks who have a disability or a mobility impairment can access those tracks chairs, like,
without having to buy it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they're stinking expensive to buy, but some of those tracks chairs will like stand up, like they'll put you in a vertical standing position while you're still belted in, which is a little easier to shoot from. So there's that aspect. You have to check with your state DNR about that, but just making sure that like you're practicing in the backyard, like your cam's clear, the handrails on the wheelchair, like making sure that you understand the mechanics of how the chair sits in the blind, and so you're not kind of figuring out in the moment in the blind. Because I mean, even just figuring out how to set your blind if you don't have a mobility impairment, you have to be pretty dialed in to make sure everything is just right. You can clear the window of the blind and all that kind of stuff. So practicing ahead of time, making sure you got it set up.
And I mean, if you have somebody that can help you in the blind, is certainly a game changer too, to help get, in the right position or make the little micro adjustments that happen right at go time.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on. But Mark, thank you for the question.
And good luck. I hope you keep us posted.
Yeah, definitely post up in DeerCast or the Rack Pack if you kill. We'd love to see that. And connect with me via the Rack Pack, and we'll send you a podcast hat.
I think I have an 11 o'clock meeting. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me text her real quick. Keep moving on.
Here we go. And we got the Real Wild clip this week. I've not seen this clip. I've only heard about it. So it's a deer that goes subterranean, it sounds like.
All right, hold on. We got Alan shaking his head here. We got technical difficulties. Are you finding it? Buttons aren't working.
Yeah.
All right, we're skipping the Real Wild clip.
We'll save it for next week.
All right, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Moving on.
We got the Wildlife Word. It's brought to you by DeerCast Wind Check. Select your stand, choose your access with confidence using DeerCast Wind Check. This is kind of a weird one. There are bones in a deer's body that
I think I hit
that
one.
are not that are not connected to any other bones. They're generally referred to as the os cordis. This bone is found in what unlikely organ in a deer's body? Is it the eyes, the liver, the heart, or D, the spleen?
The answer I was going to give isn't an option, so I'm glad it's not an option.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the path I was thinking too.
What? How do you guys both know what you're talking about?
I'm sure we know what we're talking about.
I'm completely lost.
That's
They
what she
make those
said.
cane. Make those canes from a bowl.
Yeah, that's right.
From bull horns.
So what do you think? Eyes, liver, heart, or spleen? Wade.
Wade's deep in thought.
Oh, you asking me?
Yes, sir.
Maybe he's not. I need the
I'm gonna go
Jeopardy
with
music.
You said eyes?
Eyes.
Okay.
I'm going to go with spleen. I don't know.
Okay.
What is it?
The heart.
Damn it. I haven't thought
There-
about the heart, but
Ah, crap. You should have
there's a
said
bone
it.
in there.
Yeah, yeah. It provides rigidity in the heart and separation between chambers.
Huh.
Weird.
Huh.
And it's not connected to any other bone. It's just a little like almost like a film in there.
Hmm.
The os cordis.
So dice it up next time we get one.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
And then we got shout outs. Casper 4010 gave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. He says, Matt and Tim seem like they're your buddies who hunt and drink beer on the weekends. And he said, great topics that always provide great insight on the new age of hunting.
Well, one of us drink beer.
Mm-hmm. One of us is your buddy. So you guess. Thank you for the 5-star rating. We appreciate it. And
All
the
right.
review.
Wade, have you left us a 5-star review? I'm sure you have.
Absolutely.
He gave us 3 stars and said, still waiting to be on the show. You'll get 5 when I'm on.
Yeah. I'll make sure to hit that 5-star button whenever I leave today.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks.
yeah.
We need to have more guests on so we get more 5-star reviews.
They have the exact same number of reviews as they've had guests. Weird.
All right. So we're down to the rack pack. All right. Are you in our rack pack, Wade?
No.
You son of a bitch.
Oh.
Perry
That's
is.
real.
Perry's in there because he
He's active.
comments quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
So
Mostly asking for attention, but
yes,
he's in there.
So what the Rack Pack is, we have a private Facebook group, and so you just type in, in the search bar, Drury Outdoors Rack Pack, and
Mhm.
it'll come up. And basically, it's a little community where people are, leaving hero pictures or asking questions, looking for advice,
Giving us
just
crap.
giving us crap, a lot of that. And every week, Tim lists out a bunch of names of new members of the Rack Pack, and every week he puts a fake name in there. Every week I butcher all of the names as I read them. So this week
Hee-hee.
we have Jeremy Beam. We're going with Beam. Kyle Kramer, Mason Frank, Henry Gorski, Aiden Watterson, Jared Laquier. I probably butchered that.
I think you missed a name in there too.
Tucker Randolph, Jared Laquier.
No, you skipped over a name.
Where?
Well, stop doing that to Jared first.
Mason Frank?
Like-
No, I didn't skip a name.
Yeah.
Your hearing
Between
sucks.
Henry Gorski.
I said
and-
that. I said Gorski.
Between Henry Gorski and Aiden Watterson.
There is no name.
Oh, here.
You're a son of a. Well,
I know.
Tim's got a different piece of paper than I do, apparently.
We are not on the same page.
We are not the same.
No, we're not. One of us drinks beer.
A Ordick. Okay. A period Ordick is the fake name. That was
The whole thing's ruined now.
Tucker
I
Randolph,
screwed
Trey
it up.
Klein. You sucked him.
We
You
need.
suck, Matt.
So, Wade,
Oh,
now you've seen the fun and games, the shenanigans of the Rack Pack members.
Mhm.
How can you forget this? That's what I'd like to
Oh.
know.
Our rack
I will
packers.
not-
Our rack packers are killing a lot of deer. A lot of good deer.
They are.
I
yes.
don't like them.
There are some big deer that are posted up in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'd be, some of them are like, yeah, I used the advice you guys gave. And I'm like, great.
I get really nervous when I see that. Like, what?
Well, did you see the one guy? Man, wait. So one of our questions of the day, I think it was last week, the guy asked how you exit a field, if you got a bunch of deer in the field. And so we gave a bunch of tips and advice. And then Tim just jokingly says, I just like to shout at him. And a freaking guy did that. And he posted about it in the Rack Pack.
It's like, it worked.
Unless he's joking, but he's like, Tim's advice really worked. I shot it and they ran.
They really get out of
I'm
there.
like, I don't know if that guy was serious.
We're in the field again, though.
Yeah, did they ever come back? So you gotta listen to the advice and take it with a grain of salt.
A few grains of salt. Yeah, I was like, oh boy, I hope he didn't really do that. Get up on out of here.
Yay! Hey!
Why aren't you shouting at them?
So, anyways,
All right. Well, that was episode number 289. How
All right.
could it get better?
it can't.
It can't. Nope.
All right, Wade. Well, we appreciate you jumping on, buddy, and congratulations on that giant. That is awesome.
Yes.
Well deserved.
Appreciate you guys having me on, and had a blast. And until next time, guys.
Until next time.
Wade, I hope the next time is that I get to actually go back up there to Iowa and get a chance, second chance at
We'll
life.
do one whenever you Iowa camp. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
right.
Full circle.
All right, buddy. Thanks, man.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Till next time. Peace out.
Adios.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's.